Welcome back to Offbeat Gyan. Dear viewers and subscribers, this is the first in the series of videos I will be doing on simplifying Trevelyan. Trevelyan's English Social History has been prescribed for the first year UG students of Manonmaniam Sundarnar University, and this series is an attempt to simplify this extremely readable but difficult text. So I'm going to call it the Simplifying Trevelyan series, and the first video is on Unit 3, that is Shakespeare's England. So before I talk about Shakespeare's England, I should be talking about the various religious problems which were encountered by the English people during this very crucial period in English history. So let's begin with Tudor rulers and religion. Now, the House of Tudor ruled over England from 1485 to 1603. Before the House of Tudor came to power in England, the Wars of the Roses were going on between two rival families in England. I'll be coming to that in a later slide. So, the most important aspects of the Tudor period: the Tudor family ruled over England from 1485 to 1603. The English Reformation happened during the Tudor rule. This was a period of great religious violence, turmoil, confusion, reform and change. And it was during the Tudor period that the Anglican Church, or the Independent Church of England, was established. Before the Tudors came to power, England was ruled by the Plantagenet family, or the House of Anjou, or the Angevins, from 1154 to 1485. Now, within this Plantagenet family, there were two very important rival families or groups, and they were known as the House of Yorks, or the Yorkists, and the House of Lancaster, or the Lancastrians. So, these two families kept on fighting against each other to gain control over the English throne. And these battles, which were fought between 1455 to 1487, were known as the Wars of the Roses. The white rose represented the Yorks, and the red rose represented the Lancastrians. So that is why this series of wars between these two families, which were fought between 1455 to 1487, were known as the Wars of the Roses. Now coming to the setting up of the Tudor dynasty. Henry VII was the founder of the Tudor dynasty. He was the son of King Henry VI's half-brother Edmund Tudor and Margaret Beaufort, who was a Lancastrian. So Henry Tudor defeated King Richard III of the Yorkist family at the Battle of Bosworth Field in 1485, and that is how the Wars of the Roses came to an end. So Henry VII, he is the founder of the Tudor dynasty. He was the son of King Henry VI's half-brother Edmund Tudor and Margaret Beaufort, who was a Lancastrian. That means she belonged to the House of Lancaster. So Henry Tudor defeated King Richard III, who belonged to the House of Yorks, at the Battle of Bosworth Field in 1485, and that is how the Wars of the Roses came to an end. So now Henry Tudor was in control of the English throne and the crown. His next wise step was to marry Elizabeth of York. She was the daughter of an earlier king, King Edward IV. So, when Henry Tudor got married to Elizabeth of York, this united the two warring families, the House of York and the House of Lancaster. Thus, the Wars of the Roses came to an end. because of the wisdom, because of the courage, the bravery and the vision that was shown by Henry VII, or Henry Tudor, who took on the title of Henry VII when he came to power. That is, when he became the King of England, he became King Henry VII. So, King Henry VII was the founder of the Tudor dynasty, which ruled over England from 1487 to 1603. Henry Tudor established the Tudor dynasty, which ruled over England from 1487 to 1603. Now, this is a list of the Tudor kings and queens. So, first we have Henry VII, then Henry VIII, then Edward VI, then Mary I, and finally Elizabeth I. The last of the Tudors, the wisest of the Tudors, and the one who was known as the Virgin Queen, the one in whose period England entered into a golden era. So, Henry VII's son, Arthur, was supposed to become the King of England, but Arthur died at a very young age. He died at the age of 15 of something known as the sweating sickness. So his younger brother, Henry, or Prince Hal, who was never destined to become the King of England, found himself the King of England. Henry VII had wanted his eldest son, Arthur, to become the King of England. But Arthur died at a young age, that is, at the young age of 15, of the sweating sickness. So, Henry VII made his second son, Henry VIII, that is, Prince Hal, he became King Henry VIII. Okay, somebody who was never supposed to become the King of England, somebody who never expected to become the King of England, he found himself the King of England. So, after Henry VII, we have Henry VIII. Now, Arthur had been married to Catherine of Aragon. She was a Catholic princess from Spain. The marriage had not been consummated, that is, they had no children. Arthur and Catherine, they had no children, and so Henry VIII, the new King of England, married his elder brother's widow. They had a daughter, but no sons, and Henry VIII decided to divorce Catherine, saying that the marriage had produced no male heirs to take over the line of supremacy. So this was the reason that was put forward by Henry VIII to divorce Catherine. And he wanted to marry the beautiful and lovely Anne Boleyn after divorcing his first wife, Catherine of Aragon. So, this is when the problems started in England. The kings of any European country which were in the Catholic fold, they had to seek the permission from the Pope. The Pope was the head of the Roman Catholic Church. The Pope is the head of the Roman Catholic Church, and King Henry VIII also required the permission of the Pope in Rome in order to divorce his first wife, the Catholic Catherine of Aragon, and marry Anne Boleyn. Henry VIII himself was also a Catholic, and he wanted permission from the Pope, the head of the Roman Catholic Church, in Rome, that is in Italy, in order to divorce his first wife and marry Anne Boleyn. The Pope at that time was Pope Clement VII. He refused to give permission to Henry VIII to divorce his first wife, Catherine of Aragon, because the Catholic Church does not permit divorce. So, when permission was refused, Henry VIII became enraged. He wanted the marriage to be annulled. He wanted his first marriage to be annulled, and he wanted to marry Anne Boleyn. Henry VIII got married to Anne Boleyn in 1532 without the permission of the Pope. Soon after that, Pope Clement VII excommunicated him, that is, removed him from the Catholic Church in Rome because he had disobeyed the Pope's wishes, divorced his first wife, and got married to Anne Boleyn, his second wife. Some time later, Henry VIII passed the Act of Supremacy. According to the Act of Supremacy, the rulers of England would be the heads of the church in England. From henceforward, whoever was the king or the queen of England would be the head of the church in England. And the Church of England was established in 1534. This is how the Reformation in England began, with Henry VIII breaking away from the Roman Catholic fold. That doesn't mean that he gave up his Catholic religion, because he remained a practicing Catholic until the very end. But he rejected the political authority and the control of the Pope in Rome. He practiced Catholicism, but he refuted the Pope's authority over England. And this is how he began the English Reformation. So Henry VIII had decreed that his son, Edward VI, would be his successor. He had two daughters from his earlier marriages, Mary I and Elizabeth I, but he wanted a son. He wanted his son to take over the reins of England. That is why he wanted Edward VI to succeed him. So who is Edward VI? Edward VI is the son of Henry VIII and his third wife, Jane Seymour. As you all know, Henry VIII had 6 wives, and Edward VI was the son of Henry VIII and his third wife, Jane Seymour. Edward VI was something like a boy king because he became the King of England when he was only 9 years old. And he was the first English king to be brought up as a Protestant. So, Henry VII was a Catholic, Henry VIII was a Catholic, Edward VI was brought up as a Protestant. Now, what were the important changes which happened during the period of Edward VI? Edward VI ruled with the help of a regent. Okay, because he was young and he became the king at the tender age of 9 years. So, there was a regency which helped him to rule over England. And a number of reforms were brought in the practice of religion in Christianity during this particular period. So, this was a very crucial period in English history. Now, what were the changes? The important changes were that priests were allowed to marry. Catholic religion does not permit priests to marry. Priests have to be celibate. But Edward VI allowed priests in England to marry, which was opposite to what Catholicism preached. The Mass, or the Catholic form of church service, was stopped. No longer was the Mass conducted in English churches, and all the prayers and the church services were carried out in English and not in the Latin language. So, these were very great changes which were introduced in the religious fabric of England under Edward VI. Edward VI died very soon, died at the age of 15 or so, and he was succeeded by his half-sister, Mary I. Mary I is the daughter of Henry VIII and his first wife, Catherine of Aragon. So, Mary Tudor became Queen Mary I, and she was a firm Catholic. So, what she did was, as soon as she came to power, she made changes that would undo whatever had been done during her brother's reign. That is, during the period of Edward VI's reign, whatever changes had been introduced in England, all those changes were undone by Mary I during her rule. As soon as she came to power, she repealed the Act of Supremacy. The Act of Supremacy, if you remember, says that the king is the supreme head of the church in England. So Mary I, or Mary the First, as soon as she came to power, she repealed the Act of Supremacy and she ordered all Protestants to convert to Catholic faith. All those Protestants who refused to do so, who refused to convert to the Catholic religion, they were declared heretics. They were thrown into jail and many of them were burnt to death. And that is why she is known as the infamous Bloody Mary. Once again, priests were not allowed to marry because the queen was a Catholic and Catholicism came back to England. So, priests were not allowed to marry. And this created a deep hatred in the minds of the English people towards the Catholic religion. The turmoil, the violence that was engendered by Mary the First's policies of being cruel towards the Protestants created a deep hatred in the minds of the English people towards the Catholic religion. So this was a period of great unrest and religious violence in England. There was a lot of confusion, there was a lot of fear, there was a lot of turmoil in England during this period because religious fanaticism had taken over the entire country. Queen Mary the First died in 1558. And then Elizabeth I, the daughter of Henry VIII and his second wife, Anne Boleyn, came to power. She restored peace and harmony in an uneasy and religiously disturbed England. She was a young queen with a very wide vision. She was very pragmatic and wise, and she had a very balanced view regarding religion. She prevented England from slipping into a civil war between the various warring religious groups. It was her uncanny wisdom, her grasp of the situation, and her understanding of the extent of damage that could be done by religious fanaticism that enabled England and Elizabeth to steer clear of all the religious violence that characterized most of Europe during this period. She skillfully negotiated the different religious opinions expressed by the Catholics, the Protestants, and the extreme Protestants or the Puritans. So this was another faction that was gaining in importance during the period of Elizabeth I. The Puritans were people who had actually escaped from England to different parts of Europe during the period of Mary I's reign. They had escaped because they did not want to convert to Catholicism. When Elizabeth I came to power, they returned to England, but they had been influenced by the ideas of John Calvin when they were in Geneva. So they brought back these ideas with them, and they believed that all people in England should live according to the strictures of the Bible. They were very particular about the observation of the day of rest or Sabbath or Sunday. So this made them a constant irritant for Elizabeth I. But she kept a firm control on all these religious factions, and she brought back the Act of Supremacy. The Act of Supremacy was reintroduced, but here also Elizabeth was wise enough to change the title from Supreme Head of the Church to that of Supreme Governor of the Church in order to satisfy the Catholics. So she maintained a middle path, a balanced path, where she kept equal distance from all the religions, but at the same time she made sure that the crown, the parliament and the privy council decided the religion of the state. This was okay during that very troublesome period, and the English people, who were already confused with the multiple religious changes within the monarchy, were actually content to allow the state to decide the choice of religion. So as soon as Elizabeth I came to power and she established her Protestant support for Protestantism, the priests were allowed to marry and fines were imposed for absence from Sunday prayers at church. These fines were especially imposed on the Catholics or the Popish supporters or the supporters of the Pope. The Crown, the Parliament and the Privy Council decided the religion of the nation, and the church in England became the Anglican Church by the end of her reign. The Anglican Church had been a fledgling at the time that she took over, but soon it became a much beloved religion of the English people with its own prayer book, with its own strictures, with its own forms of worship. And by the time that Elizabeth I passed away, the Anglican Church had firmly established itself on English soil. The reading of the English prayer book written by Thomas Cranmer, the Archbishop of Canterbury in 1549 during the rule of Edward VI, became compulsory in churches across England. So, Elizabeth supported Protestantism. She chose a balanced, broad-minded approach to the question of religion, and thus she prevented a civil war in England. She prevented the country from disintegrating into chaos and violence, and this was the period of the golden age of England, a time of great peace, productivity, progress and prosperity in England. At the end of this video, I have added the notes regarding this whole period. Detailed notes are provided at the end of this video, which you can take down if you choose to do so. And I hope this will help you in understanding English social history. So if you wish to keep on watching more of this kind of content, then please do subscribe to my channel of Beat Gyan. And there are notes which are provided in my website also of beatgyan.com. I hope this will help you to understand Trevelyan's English social history. So thank you for watching this first video in the Simplifying Trevelyan series. Thank you once again.